Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Every duck's got his limit, and you scum have pushed me over the line.
Jimmy, do you like to see what I see? A talking duck?
Yeah, that's it. I've been doing too much toot. Shoot! Fly away!
No one laughs at a master of quack fu.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of The Pint. My name is John.
My name is Lloyd.
And we're back with a triple T. We haven't done one of these in a while. Trash, tolerable, or treasure.
I'm glad
Lloyd.
You said it, because I can't say it.
It is. It's a mouthful. It's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of T's. Tra, tal, tra. A lot of that stuff. Now, we were talking, what are we going to do this week? And you came up with an idea for the triple T. You gave me a couple of ideas.
Yep.
What movie did you settle on? What movie did you pick?
I picked Howard the motherfucking Duck.
That's right. 1986's
1986.
Howard the Duck. If you're ever going to think about the trash moniker, this is one that I think, like you said, you had never seen it before, but you knew of this as being a bomb.
I knew all about it, right. And I was actually surprised. I don't know when I thought it came out, but I was surprised that it came out in 86. I thought it was just a little later than that.
Yeah, no, 1986. As a matter of fact, Howard the Duck landed in theaters on August 1st of 1986. And let's get right into it.
Do you want me to get naked and start the revolution?
Directed by a guy named Willard Huyck.
I kept wanting to say
Huyck. Willard Huyck. He directed, let's see, a film called French Postcards and Best Defense, which was a Dudley Moore and Eddie Murphy movie. It was written by Huyck and his wife, Gloria Katz, together.
Yeah, a lot easier to say.
Yeah, she did not take the last name Huyck for a reason. Because it sounds like you're throwing up.
I don't want to sound like I'm clearing my throat all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with Katz. It's a great deli in New York City. Okay. And your last name sounds like someone's fucking throwing up in their own mouth. But they've written a lot of things together.
Is it Verp?
Verp?
I just made that up. Like you know what shart is, right?
Oh yeah.
So verp,
like a vomit burp? Yeah.
Vomit burp? Yeah, verp.
Yeah, I fucking hate verping too. Like, because there's no good, there's
acidy burning.
That's what I'm saying. It's one of two things. It's either straight up acid, like you've eaten long enough ago that it's digested, but you have a verp, or it's whatever you just ate. Like, oh, that tasted just like pizza. Now I don't want pizza. Have you ever eaten ice cream and like half an hour later verped and it's still fucking cold?
No, but I think I want to try this.
I've 150% done that at least 2 times in my life. Burped, forgotten I'd eaten ice cream an hour ago, burped, and it's still goddamn chilled. It's amazing.
Wow. All right, so would you rather verp while you're kissing or shart while you're fucking?
Oh, that's a really good one.
I just thought of it.
Well, I guess, oh man, sharting while fucking, while messier and more terrifying, you could avoid getting onto your partner probably. Yeah. Like you could make some maneuvers. And just by saying shart, you're intoning that you have like pants on, right? Shit fart. Well, no, it doesn't mean you have pants on.
Not really.
But if you're like,
back away.
Yeah, you could back away. If you're like, if you got tongue and mouth and you verp, they're getting it. And that's a deal breaker. That's a deal breaker. You know, everybody knows like this happens to everybody, like all these bodily functions, but it doesn't make it any better when you realize, oh, this guy verped in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no good for a second date.
No. No bueno on the verb in the mouth. So Willard Huck and Gloria Katz, they wrote a bunch of stuff. They were very heavily involved with George Lucas, who was obviously the producer of this film. I say obviously, but that's probably, and we'll talk about it in a minute, that's probably why so many people know of this as such a bomb. It's because his name is attached to it, and he was not known for bombs that time. But they wrote American Graffiti with him, which we covered a couple years ago. They wrote the Radioland Murders, which was, I think, a year after this, and it wasn't a bomb like this, but it was one of Lucas's movies that didn't do great. And they wrote fucking Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which a lot of people will say is, well, except for Crystal Skull, if you take that out, we'll say, oh, that's the shitty one of the trilogy. Fuck you. That Temple of Doom's a great movie. I love it. I was 9 when it came out. It was kind of my first real theater experience with Indiana Jones. So
yeah, I saw Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom in the theater even before I ever saw, the first one.
Right.
Raiders, yeah.
I love it. It's a fantastic movie.
These two were pretty good script partners, for everything.
Yeah, and I think it said that at least Hack, I think he was like an uncredited script doctor on Star Wars.
Yeah, her too. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where they kind of had met. They went to film school with George Lucas, became friendly with him there, and obviously he brought him along for a lot of his projects. But that's also apparently where he told them about his love for this comic book Marvel was putting out called Howard the Duck. And here's a little bit of information about Howard the Duck, the comic book. Howard the Duck was created by Steve Gerber and Val Mayerick. At one point, Steve Gerber tried to sue Marvel, claiming that it was his property, and he lost because that's how it works.
It's Marvel's, yeah.
Yeah, it's Marvel's. You
don't own any of it.
It's not the Image. It wasn't around then. It wasn't something Dark Horse. You created a character, but like you created it for them.
Right.
But he tried. So Howard the Duck, number 1 of his own title, was released in 1976. Right. Steve Gerber wrote the first 27 issues. It ran 31, but he left. He actually got fired, supposedly. They were also concurrently, there was a Howard the Duck newspaper strip that had started about halfway through that run, and he ended up leaving both because he had apparently had a lot of deadline issues. There was 4 more issues of the first run of Howard. It got to 31, and then it got canceled. Originally, Howard debuted in Adventure into Fear, number 19, in a backup story slot to Man-Thing.
Man-Thing.
I want to say this real quick.
I should have wrote that Man-Thing.
I want to say this real quick. I'm not a Man-Thing fan. I'm a Swamp Thing fan in DC. I have never even read a Man-Thing story, but I just want to throw this out there. I don't know if it's still there or not. I don't know if you've seen it, Manster, but Dan at BoomTube Comics.
It's amazing.
You saw, I don't even give a fuck about Man-Thing. I might buy that figure at some point.
I was thinking the same thing.
There is a figure of Man-Thing, and I didn't prepare this, so I don't remember who puts this out. If it's Marvel Legends, or Marvel Selects, or one of those. It is fucking incredible. The detail on this figure is incredible. And Dan, again from BoomTube Comics, was telling me there's like 5 variants. There's like, I think, a glow in the dark one. There's maybe a black and white one. But the detail, there's like little woodland creatures that are on him. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember, but I think he said it was like $100. And
it's rather large too. It's not
it's super big.
Yeah.
And it's like, for a character I don't know anything about, I can't think of spending the money, but the figure is a piece of art.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I love the look of Man-Thing.
Absolutely.
He's got a great character design.
Absolutely. I've never read a Man-Thing story that I know of.
Empath? Is that what he is?
He, something about his stare, I think maybe it's almost like the Penance stare in Ghost Rider. There's real comic fans right now screaming at us.
Yeah, right.
Actually, Man-Thing, it's like something about his stare. There's a whole saying about the fear and all this, whatever. All right. So back to Howard the Duck. So Howard started off there, got his own title. In 1976, the character was so popular that in the book, they wrote him into the presidential campaign that was happening that year. And apparently that year there was a ton of write-ins for Howard the Duck in our real world. Yeah. And he stayed alive through the years in Marvel in small ways. Just about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, Chip Zdarsky wrote a 6-issue miniseries. And he also showed up very famously in Guardians of the Galaxy, voiced by Seth Green. So Howard the Duck, has a place in history. As a matter of fact, a couple years ago for Christmas, my wife, Lindsay, I told her I wanted it. She got me, I have the omnibus of the 31 issues.
Oh, really?
I've just never read it because I have to come to a real honest conclusion, and you probably agree with me, Lloyd. I love omnibuses. I love the look of them. I love the idea of them. I don't love the reading capability of them.
Yeah. I've got a bunch. I'm looking at them right now. They're about 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to have children, don't put it on your lap.
100%. So I have a couple, like last year I got the Thunderbolts omnibus. I had never read that Kurt Busiek, the original Thunderbolts. I had never read it. It was when I was out of comics. I got a real great deal on it. And I read about half of it. I have to finish it. But every time I would read it, you shouldn't have to think about when you're going to read. Do I have to go sit at a table to do this? Am I going to cut the blood supply off to my cock and balls while this thing sits in my lap as I try to read this? Omnibuses are so fucking cool.
To plan ahead.
Yeah, they're so cool, but they're so fucking difficult. So heavy. All right. So that's all of that. That's all of the kind of who made this. Another real quick thing. It was filmed between November of 85 and March of 86. And even though it takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, it was filmed all over George Lucas's usual kind of places. Modesto, which is where he's from and where he filmed American Graffiti, Patumila, California, Oakland, Sacramento, San Francisco. So it was all around there. All right. So Manster, first thing before we get into the cast, because again, on these Triple T episodes, if you've never heard one before, we're trying to kind of determine in our own way what made this thing, earn its trash reputation. Was it the cast? Was it the writer, director? So far, the writer sounds pretty good. The people involved.
Writer's pretty good.
American Graffiti and Star Wars. So that all sounds pretty good from a pretty popular in terms of like lasting, through the decades, Marvel comic, right? Howard the Duck is not a forgotten character. Do you think that having George Lucas's name on this thing and it being a box office bomb amplifies its kind of trash reputation through time?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think if his name was not associated, I don't think it would be as huge of a bomb as it was.
Right. Because if you think about it, but I mean, this is a guy that like his track record from 1977. So essentially 10 years before this movie came out is Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Raiders,
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti before that, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He's got nothing but hits happening. And then all of a sudden,
major hits. And
then all of a sudden he has this anthropomorphic duck movie and it doesn't do well. And now, so I think, right, that people always go to that, like, oh, that was George Lucas, I
don't know. Do they always go to it?
I hear that a lot.
I don't really know enough about the history of, other than the research I've done.
Yeah.
So I don't recall, over the years or even back in the day, what was really thought about it. But I do know, I think a lot of what happened was, I think conflict of vision.
Okay.
Because they wanted to really, Huck and Katz wanted it to be animated. But, they didn't think they had time for that. They wanted to hit out by summer, and they thought it would take a lot of time and a lot of money. So they made it live action with special effects. And then I think they kind of bogged it down with special effects just so that they could highlight, the usage of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah, I did read that initially it was going to be an initially it was going to be an animated film, and then at one point they kind of alluded in two different articles I read that they're going to try to make it a computer generated character, which
that didn't exist yet.
and that didn't exist at that time. So when I read that in two places, so I thought, was ILM so far ahead that they might have had like the shittiest, most rudimentary, like, hey, let's think about it. That same year or the year before, Dire Straits' Money for Nothing,
True. Yeah.
video happened. And that was like a early CG thing, animated with kind of a weird computer pixely thing. So maybe they thought that. So then they end up getting all these suits together, and making it a live action thing. But yeah, to me, it just seems like a lot of times when I hear people bring up Howard the Duck and laugh about it, usually you end up hearing them go, oh, George Lucas, that I think they go to that. It's essentially like, if Michelangelo, he painted the Sistine Chapel and then like he also, his next big thing was a stick figure, and people would be like, oh, did you see stick figure on the side of the church in Rome? Yeah. And people would go, Michelangelo, you know what I mean? They'd remember it because it's such shit. And he had nothing but a good reputation. at that point. Why don't we find out if the cast was an issue, Master?
All right, let's look at the cast.
My God, it's full of stars.
So first of all, as Howard the Duck, the suit performer, we have Jordan Prentice, who was a young boy, and Ed Gale, who was an older young small person.
Right.
And it started out as Jordan Prentice being the actor, but being a child and having, child labor laws and the fact that the suit was claustrophobic, and he's a child playing a kind of gritty duck, not human, but an adult character. So things just weren't working out as they thought it would. So Ed Gale became the number one actor as it progressed.
He's actually like the third person in the credits too.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unusual for people in suit movies. A lot of times they get and Ed Gale, but he's in the credits in this.
Yeah. And Ed Gale, if you don't know, he played Chucky in a few of the Child's Play movies. I think the first three, or maybe the first two, and then one further on. And he was one of the Dinks in Spaceballs, which were the Jawa characters.
Oh, okay.
Spaceballs, yeah. And then we have, I'll just say these people's names because I don't really know what else. Tim Rose, Steve Sleep, Peter Baird, Mary Wells, and Lisa Sturz as the puppeteers. Basically, they were people with joysticks. It was all remote and done like that. Although Tim Rose, the first name that I said, was known for being Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I knew that name. I knew you were setting me up. It was a trap.
Nice. And then someone I don't even know, Chip Zien as Howard the Duck's voice.
Did you read about, and I never knew this, did you read about who was hired and worked for a week as Howard the Duck's voice?
I sure did.
Who was it?
So that was Robin Williams that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Among several other actors who auditioned, including John Cusack and Martin Short. Williams worked for a week, but quit, basically calling it insane and that he couldn't get into the rhythm because the way they were doing it was they were trying to voice match what was already filmed.
Yeah.
So they would see the Bill talking and they would have to match the script to that. And he just could not deal with it because he's a free spirit,
He's off the wall.
Yeah, he's off the wall.
So the way they did it was they didn't have Ed Gale read off his lines in the suit because he couldn't be heard properly.
Right, too muffled.
So they attached a speaker system to the suit and had someone off camera read the lines so that the actors working against him would know. But the problem is that they filmed the joystick people made the bill move. So when Robin Williams gets on set and he's trying to do all of his Robin Williams craziness, he can't make anything he's saying match the bill. So he quits because it's too restrictive. And they said when Chip Zien came in, he had to read it exactly. It was painstaking because if you have this line, he had to say it in the same cadence and tone, well, not tone, but cadence as the voice actor who did the speaking on set to match the bill. It's come on.
It's a lot of fucking work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I don't remember the actual line. I heard it. I watched a little program. I think it was called Remembering Howard the Duck. It's a little half-hour thing about it. And he did some ad-libbing in there, and they actually did use some of his ad-libs in the actual movie.
Oh, okay.
I forget exactly what they were, but I think that might have been sort of background lines, not visual lines.
Probably stuff where you didn't see his bill moving. Yeah.
Yep. Then we have Leah Thompson as Beverly Switzer, a basically wannabe rock star of a female group called Cherry Bomb, which is actually pretty good. Musical director Thomas Dolby.
Thomas Dolby, who also wrote some songs that were in the movie.
Yeah.
And Leah Thompson, I guess, I didn't realize it until this viewing. I hadn't seen this in a long time, but that was her singing all those songs.
Yeah.
During filming, they were back and forth as to whether they were going to eventually take her voice out and add in a professional singer, and they kept her in. And also,
fine.
She did sound fine. And I don't know if you noticed it or not, but did you notice who was in the band with her? It was Holly Robinson Pete.
Yeah, Holly Robinson Pete. Yeah. Well, Holly Robinson at the time.
At the time. She hadn't met Rodney Pete wasn't even a quarterback with the Lions at that point. Yeah.
Not yet. No. Leah Thompson, you might remember her from our Jaws 3D podcast where that was pretty funny. Red Dawn, Back to the Future, obviously. In Some Kind of Wonderful, which I guess she got after this movie, so Some Kind of Wonderful she originally turned down. And then after this movie bombed, she was having a hard time getting roles, and so she took that one.
She had, at that point, developed a penchant for playing like really sexually deviant characters because
Yeah, right?
in 1985 in Back to the Future, she's trying to fuck her future son.
Yeah.
And then in Howard the Duck, even though many people say, and we kind of talked about this off air before, that everybody always says, oh, she fucks him in the movie. There's no fucking scene in the movie.
there is.
But she does end up with him, and he certainly will be fucking her.
Yeah. He will be loading her with duck sperm.
Yeah, I did want to bring something up too about Howard the Duck's sexual, I guess, health. Is he keeps a condom in his wallet, but not wrapped?
I know it looked almost used.
Does he? Does Howard the
Like,
Duck?
Oh, Howard.
Yeah, does very tiny. He has a very tiny penis, which is fine.
Yeah,
But does he A, keep a new unwrapped condom in his wallet where it's just going to get dirty and disgusting, or does he rinse out like his previous condom?
He rinses it out.
It's terrible.
And that was such an odd choice to be an unwrapped condom. Right? They could have just found a wrapped one.
Two really odd choices in this movie, right? I want to bring them up real quick. Number one, the unwrapped condom. Number two, in the beginning of the movie, it almost feels like we're going to go for a hard R, right? Because we see duck breasts. And I want to ask you about the title.
We'll talk about,
Yeah, I got to ask you about the title of this movie poster. The whole beginning of the movie is introducing us to Howard on Duck World, and it's his apartment. And obviously, we get the joke. He's on Duck World, so everything is like duck.
It's duck
central.
puns everywhere.
Duck puns everywhere, absolutely. But how gross was the one, Breeders of the Lost Stork? What the fuck?
That was gross. That was gross. Oh my God.
Why couldn't it have been Raiders of the Lost Stork? It would have still been a funny joke.
It would have been a better joke.
And not made it so grossly sexual.
I thought the exact same thing. And,
I think I actually said ew when I saw that poster. Ew. Oh, okay.
I was confused. I was reading it and I'm like, I was like, what? Did I really just read that?
Breeders of the Lost Stork.
One more thing about Leah Thompson is the first thing I noticed was the Kim Richards hair from Tough Enough.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And she supposedly was angry at the production company because it took so long to do her hair in that wavy style that she was apparently complaining every day that why am I not just wearing a wig?
Yeah, she wanted a wig. Yep. Or not, what did I say? Tough Enough. Tough Turf.
Tough Turf.
Tough Turf. Then we have Tim Robbins in a very early role as Phil Blumbert with two T's at the end. Blumbert.
Yeah. Philzy.
Yeah, Philzy. I liked him in this.
Yeah.
It was really cool seeing his kind of wacky off the wall characterization, knowing some of those future roles that he's going to be.
Yeah.
Really good. He was he was passed off as a scientist, but really he was just sort of like a lab assistant / janitor.
Yeah, and that's not even important halfway through the rest of the movie. He's just kind of like their friend.
Yeah.
He starts off as you think that's going to be the important part, and then the rest of it, he's just like helping them out. Yeah. And to Tim Robbins' credit, I was reading that I read an interview with him in researching all this, where even like within a few years ago, he doesn't like shit on this movie. He's grateful for it. He's it was a great check. It was, I worked for George Lucas. They were paying me really well. I was a nobody at that point. You know, I think his first big movie was Bull Durham a couple years later. And at that point, the only thing he really was probably semi-known for was he had a small role in Top Gun. He was one of the pilots or the Rios in Top Gun. He was the one that was stuck with Cougar in the beginning when Cougar goes nuts. Yeah. So he goes
on to be Andy Dufresne.
Yeah, I mean, he's in one of the greatest movies of all time.
High Fidelity. Do you ever watch that show on Hulu called Castle Rock?
I have not, but I know he's in it, right?
A whole conglomeration of Stephen King stuff. Yeah, he plays Pop Merrill, who is Ace Merrill's father from Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah, really good. Then we have troublesome Jeffrey Jones as Dr. Walter Jennings.
Yeah.
He's the scientist. But he's a good guy, but he's a scientist responsible for all the bad stuff that happens. Him from the Rooney and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Beetlejuice, Deadwood,
Ravenous,
Child Porn.
Yeah.
Ravenous.
Yeah. Very, very troublesome Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah. But really, I thought he was really good in this. Then we have a couple of lesser known. So David Paymer as Larry, one of the dudes.
He was a lab assistant or something.
Lab assistant, yeah.
Yeah.
Airplane 2, Night of the Creeps.
Yep.
And City Slickers. Paul Guilfoyle as Lieutenant Walken. Lieutenant Welker. And most people will remember him as Captain Jim Brass from every CSI.
That's right. I knew he's one of those, I don't watch CSI, but he's one of those actors that I knew his face, and I've seen enough, background of CSI to know that he's in that show.
Yep. Same here. I knew him from somewhere, but I didn't know. And then I'll just go through the other members of Cherry Bomb, the rock group. So you have Liz Segal as Ronette, sister of Katie Segal, and also one of the two Doublemint twins. Yep.
I could not place her when I was watching this. And then I read and I went, oh, that's because she was on like TV, they were in Grease 2, those twins, I believe, and TV shows in the 80s. So I knew who she was.
Yeah. Then we have Dominique Davalos as Cal. She was formerly of some band, Dominatrix band, whose MTV video got banned for like S&M or something.
Oh.
And then, as you said before, Holly Robinson as Casey from 21 Jump Street, hanging with Mr. Cooper, married to a former Dallas Cowboy backup quarterback.
Rodney Peete.
Good dude, Rodney Peete.
Yeah, he was solid.
Yeah, and that is your cast. A lot of other folks, but, we can't get into everybody.
So overall, the cast doesn't seem to be, no. I wasn't mad at the performances in the film. I didn't have a problem. I didn't feel like anybody stood out like a sore thumb. All right, so let's move on to our next little section, and let's talk about the box office. Let's talk about what was going on in the weekend and the year of 1986 that this came out.
All you care about is money.
All right, so this came out. It had a $37 million budget for a Lucasfilm movie. That's unbelievably cheap, but it was 86, so it's probably pretty big. Here's the top 5 for the weekend it opened, which was August 3rd of 1986. Number 5, I didn't look this one up. I think it might be a Jack Nicholson movie. Heartburn.
Yeah,
Heartburn.
I think it's Jack Nicholson.
Made $3.5 million. It was out for 2 weeks. Number 4, it ended up spawning Cobra Kai.
I sure did.
4.1 million, out for 7 weeks. It was the Karate Kid Part 2. Part 2. Number 3, Howard the Duck. So our boy popped the top 5. $5.0 million it opened, but it could not compete against the other movie it opened against. No. Our buddy Stu, his favorite of the series, I believe, in at $6.8 million. Jason Voorhees, with Alice Cooper singing his theme song, The Man Behind the Mask. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Yeah. And Jason kicked the shit out of Howard the Duck. But out for 3 weeks, and rightfully at number 1. We reviewed it last year on
best movies of all time.
We reviewed it last year on April 26th, Alien Day. $7 million. Aliens.
Did you see that in the theater?
Oh, yes, I did. I did. My dad and mom took me to see that. Yeah, I love that movie. One of the rare 5s I've given here on the pint. Overall for the year, it made $16.3 million, and it came in 54th. So here's how I want to just kind of point that out. I understand that it bombed out. It was a $37 million budget. It made less than half of that, right? It looks like. But here's the crazy thing. Here are movies that are more beloved that came in lower than Howard the Duck in 1986. I don't have the placements for all of them, but they're movies that either on a popular scale or in a genre scale are probably considered much better than Howard the Duck and did much worse. Now, again, I understand how many theaters they opened in, what their budgets were, but whatever. Highlander came in lower than 54 and 86. That's a movie people fucking love.
Damn.
Labyrinth, a movie I don't love, but it seems like everybody and their mother loves. A Jim Henson production came in lower than 54th in 1986. And then two movies we kind of like here on the pint that we've talked about an awful lot, but are very popular amongst the horror communities that came in below Howard the Duck. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 and A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. They both came in lower than Howard the Duck. So just kind of on a sliding scale, if you want to think of how bad Howard the Duck was and what a bomb it was to everybody, It was 54th in 86. It was in the top 100. So again, I know that there's a lot of variables there, but it wasn't like it came in. We've done movies that didn't even crack the top 100 of their year.
We've done movies that didn't even appear on any list.
Right. They didn't, they never made a weekend. They didn't do shit. So that's it for Howard the Duck. All right, Manster, let's talk about those Rotten Tomatoes and let's talk about those Razzies.
It was a run by fruiting.
So Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter is a green splotch, which is anything below 60%. It is 14%, 1-4. And the audience score a little bit higher at 38%, more than doubled. But, you know, this thing does have a cult following, so
yeah,
I'm going to lift it up. So Razzies. All right, so here we go. The Golden Raspberries of 1986. It was nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Supporting Actor in Tim Robbins.
Come on.
Worst Screenplay, Worst New Star. That one was stupid. I'll get to it. Worst Original Song, which it really wasn't that bad of a song.
Can I say something about the song real quick?
Yeah.
Along the lines of me not knowing Robin Williams had worked on this and quit, I didn't know that the fucking theme song was co-written by George Clinton.
Yeah. Thomas Dolby and George Clinton.
No fucking idea.
Great. So worst original song, and the seventh was worst visual effects. So it won for worst picture. And I guess, you know, my little thing here was given to Gloria Katz. It won for worst screenplay of Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz. It won for worst new star, which is a stupid one because it's the 6 guys and gals that controlled the duck.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Such a stupid award. And it won for worst visual effects by ILM.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a few minutes. All right, so again, the Razzies don't really matter. I think it's just fun for us to
just fun. Yeah.
Dip our toes into there. Manster, do you think that it was an odd choice in 1986? And I think, if I remember reading correctly, that this was the first big screen Marvel character since the 40s Captain America serials. Like, this was the first. I know that there was the Italian Captain America, but I think this is the first like majorly released one. This is a couple years before The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren. Do you think that like maybe the public just wasn't looking for their first Marvel character, obviously 25 years before the MCU happens, to be Howard the Duck?
Well, for sure the public wasn't looking for a Howard the Duck movie, 100%. You know, this was definitely a pet project, something that George Lucas liked and wanted to make. You know, you can't blame a guy for that.
Right.
But no way was the general audience, the viewing public, looking for a Howard the Duck movie.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like such an odd character to put out there. And again, I know there was no plan. There was nothing like the MCU where it was like, this is gonna birth our universe.
Right. This is phase 0.1.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you also, another question I have just generally about the movie itself, and we'll get into our likes and dislikes in a few minutes. Do you feel like a movie like this suffers from kind of a disease of who it's made for? Like, so to us right now in 2023, we pretty much know that this was not made for kids. But in 1986, I don't know how it was marketed, but like the first thing you see is this animatronic duck. And I can imagine it's not an R-rated movie, I think, right? I don't think it's R.
No.
But within the first 10 minutes, you see duck titties. Yep. You see our hero looking at a, what was it, play duck?
Play duck.
Yeah. So do you think that they're...
Double spread, yeah.
Do you think they should have gone all the way one way or all the way the other way? Because obviously this wasn't the same Howard from the comics, from what I've read. And from what I have seen with Howard is he was kind of more of a ne'er-do-well character, kind of a grump. And they were trying to toe the line and make him a little bit more likable. But do you think they should have gone one way or the other in terms of make this an adult movie or make this a kid's movie?
Absolutely. The movie, as we'll talk about as we go along, it has such an inconsistent tone.
Yeah.
And you don't know whether, you know, it's an adult movie. It's kind of sophisticated at the start, right? And at the very start, it's like a neo-noir movie. You know, with the scenery, you got sort of like the New York City. Oh, by the way, the double moons. That was a pretty fun homage to Star Wars. But it goes from there, and then it gets silly, right? And then it gets sort of a adult again. Then you've got like two people trying to rape a girl, and then you've got Leah trying to hump a duck, and and at some points then it's kids and it's slapstick. There's so many, it's all over the place. It's so inconsistent in tone. I wish they would have kind of tried to grab on to one more thing. I would have really liked if it was like a neo-noir kind of crime thing. That would have been way cool.
Yeah, like a little bit of a darker, because it also really felt to me like at the beginning, again, I hadn't seen this in so long I couldn't remember. It felt to me like in the beginning, they were getting us ready for this to be like a risque movie, right? Again, I know it's only one scene, but like literally in the first 10 minutes, we see a duck on Duck World in the bathtub and her nipples and titties are exposed.
Yeah.
But then like that all kind of disappears. You get a little bit of the risqueness of, he goes to bed with her and she's wearing her little midriff exposing thing and her little shorts and everything.
Tiny little panties.
Little panties.
Little panties and like, I don't know what you call that, a baby doll top or just like a half a tank top or something. So
you're kind of getting the idea of like, are we going somewhere with this? And then they kind of shift out of that again. You're absolutely right when you say that the tone is kind of wildly all over the place in this thing. Like it felt like they couldn't settle on what kind of movie they were trying to make. What was it? I mean, if you had to describe this movie to somebody, what category would you put it in?
Wow. I don't really know. Comedy?
I think the same thing, but is it super funny?
No, it's not. I mean, it's funny in places. He has some of the best lines, but a lot of them kind of fall flat. And I'm not trying to expose my cards at all. I'm just like saying some of the stuff falls flat. Some of it works. There's a lot of puns. And at some point, it's like, all right, that's maybe too many puns. Like enough, we get it with the duck stuff. But
I felt like a movie that achieves a tone that I felt like this movie could have done better if it or let me put it this way. Maybe this movie was attempting to achieve the same tone and this other movie did a better job, is Big Trouble in Little China. Okay. It's an action film. Mm-hmm. There are stakes. There's an evil, force coming to do terrible things. And it's also jokey and has good laughs and it's funny. And I feel like at no point through Howard the Duck do they necessarily get all those things right at the same time.
No. It
feels like you're changing channels through different movies.
Exactly.
Right? It starts off, like you said, like this, okay.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, kind of like, oh, it's a science fiction story of a duck that gets launched from his world to ours. And now it's a duck out of water movie where he's got jobs.
I have those exact words written down. Duck out of water.
He said duck out of water. Like, there's that really, I mean, again, they do go back to the adult tone when they have that really weird sequence where he works in like a bathhouse for a while.
I know. He's it's so funny and how quickly he changes. Like Leah Thompson is helping him, right? And then all of a sudden something just doesn't go his way and he's like, all right, I'm done with all you folks. Somebody made fun of him or somebody made a comment and that put him off. And then he's like, all right. And then he goes into this little, it's like when he's walking in that fountain.
Yeah.
And he goes into this exposition. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to see how this world works and get a job and find my own path and make my way. It's like totally telling you what he's going to do for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just was weird. It was just very peculiar.
It was weird. I have to really wonder. I'm going to have to watch. I have the Blu-ray. Our good buddy, Brian Welly, Spielberg Welly, who hooked you up, right?
Yeah, I'm going to shout him out. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm going to shout him out too. He gave me the Blu-ray years ago. I'm going to have to go through some of the special features because I wonder if there's any bit in the special features about how many parents brought their kids to see Howard the Duck. And then like within 40 minutes, he's working in a bathhouse where everybody's just fucking around him. Now, granted, it's not like typical extreme 80s, like fucking, but like it's still adult enough that it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. For a kid, if you're 12 years old, you're going to And if you're an adult with a 12-year-old kid, that's going to be very, very uncomfortable.
Super uncomfortable. Like, what, mommy? What were those people doing in that hot tub? It's like, okay, why was there a giant bra that was clogging up the hot tub jet? Like, I don't want to talk about Howard the Duck ever again with you. Yeah.
Let me shout out Brian. Also, he put out, I think it was on Facebook. I saw it, a little thing saying, "Hey, anybody out there, this particular feature is going to go away from a streaming service," and which was like a share a movie kind of thing. He goes, "If anybody wants a movie, shout it out and I'll send it to you." And I'm like, "Hey, I don't own Howard the Duck. It's not streaming anywhere for free, so I'll ask Brian," not knowing he was a big fan of it.
Oh yeah, he's a huge fan.
He sent it to me, and I was able to watch the movie for free. So thank you very much, Brian. You can also YouTube Howard the Duck stuff, and you'll see special features. I watch 2 of them.
I used to have game nights at my house all the time, and Brian used to come, and he was such a big fan that like one game night, Sir John was here, and I think he gave me and Sir John like brand new copies of Howard the Duck on Blu-ray, just as like a little gift. And it was funny because I had never watched it. And when you asked to do this, I was like, I think I own that. I think I incidentally, weirdly never bought it and own it. And I did. So,
and one more thing for all you Pint listeners out there who also go to Connecticut Cult Classics. Just want you to know that Brian is very generous in some of the things that he gives on our behalf.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Brian really, has done a lot of great stuff for us. And, he's a good friend and a solid guy. And also, I think it's important to mention this. I have no clue if Brandon from the archive in Connecticut listens to this show. Probably not, but him and Brian look exactly the fucking same. Me and you have discussed this. Brandon is like Brian 20 years ago. Yeah. They're not related. I know everybody listening to this is like, what are they talking about? But real quick, it's two guys that we know in our lives that aren't related, probably don't know each other. They have the same face. It's a very interesting thing. All right, let's get right to it. Let's get to our likes and dislikes. And then after that, we'll get to the main event.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
I'll start with you. Give me a like of Howard the Duck.
A like. So, just like you said, he's a duck out of water, just trying to fit in. He's not a fucking complainer. You know, you don't have to listen to all this bullshit. He just is so quick to just say, all right, well, this is a situation and I'm going to fucking deal with it. And I like that, you know, he's very respectful.
Yeah, I liked him too. I liked Howard himself. I wanted him to do okay on Earth. I wanted him to get back. Like, again, I hadn't seen this movie in so long. I was like, I want him to get back to his planet. But you know, I was happy that even though he didn't, he found, you know, and look, let's not feel bad for him. He's banging Leah Thompson. So good for him. If I have to go with a like right off the bat, my number one like for this movie, and you mentioned during the Razzies that it won worst effects from ILM. They're fucking insane. First of all, at the very least, the Howard the Duck suit looks really good. It looks good even by today's standards, but I'm going to even push that aside. When Jeffrey Jones's character becomes the Dark Overlord at the end, between his physical transformation and the effects they put on him, the lightning effects, when there's a scene where they're in a diner and it's like a fight breaks out and he starts to glow and lightning bolts are hitting the lighting fixtures. And then there's a whole bit where at the end where the actual Dark Overlord comes through and it's a Phil Tippett created stop motion crab vagina. That's the only way I can describe it.
The crabgina, but it looks fucking great. And then there's a bit where while they're fighting the crabgina, it blasts the Leah Thompson character and the Tim Robbins character with like kind of like a stasis beam that's like all sparkly. That looked fucking good.
It looked
like,
good.
I know this is ILM and I know that they're well ahead of their time even in 86, but I was going to say that anyway. But them to hear the Razzies said that was the worst. Go fuck yourself, Razzies. You got no clue. Got no clue. Also, in a lot of this, you can see on that special feature, when they filmed his transformation to the Dark Overlord, it was not all sequential or chronological. I mean, he had to be, because if you watch the film and his portrayal, it definitely he goes from one extreme to another.
Oh, yeah.
And everything in between. And they filmed different portions of that at different times. So imagine how hard it is to sort of just keep that in your head. Like, where am I in my transformation? Oh, well, I'm a little further back. I'm a little further ahead. And I think he did a fantastic job. And like you said, I think the makeup on his face and the brow and all that stuff, it looked great. That stuff was good.
It was awesome. I mean, at one point he ends up looking like crazy Albert Einstein.
Yep.
His hair's all white and everything. Yeah,
so
and
stuff is blowing up like one thing after another, like the plates flying off the counter. Yeah, it was great. I don't see why they would nominate that.
No, I thought the effects work and obviously, you can't give them shit for the Howard stuff. I mean, it looked good.
Right.
I know you hated the movie, but like the turtles look great. That was a Henson thing.
Yeah.
And that was like 4 years later. And this is right up there. This could have fit in the same movie. He looks real. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like, it doesn't look so odd. There's some movies where they have something like that and you're like, oh, that's so terribly fake. And this is as real as you could be for 1986, I felt. So yeah, that's a like I have. Master, do you have another like for Howard the Duck?
Yeah, I've got some likes. I'm just going to piggyback on my last one, and then I'll add another one. The character of Howard, he was a defender of women. He fucking stood up for the women.
Yeah.
And he was not afraid to mess around or mess it up, cluck someone up, you might say, in a dark alley, some guy who's probably about, 4 feet taller than he is, and take him down. And he was fucking good at it too.
He's a master of quack fu.
Quack fu.
Sorry, yeah. Quack fu.
Much respect for Howard.
Yeah.
Another like beside that, and I'm just going to be gross here and show my fucking male chauvinist grossness, but Leah Thompson, come on.
Yeah.
And that scene in the panties when they're about to get it on, damn.
when I was a kid, she was a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Because she just kept showing up in everything, and I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And, wow, what's happening to my body? I know what's happening to my body. It's Leah Thompson.
What's happening to my head? What do you call those feathers?
Oh,
he got a feather boner.
He got a feather boner. I was watching this and Lindsay was like reading and not really paying attention, but that scene she was kind of paying attention to. And when he gets his feather hard on, I even said to Lindsay, I said, I am super uncomfortable right now. Like, I think he honestly just got a fucking boner.
Yeah.
If I had to go with another, I think the cast is really good in this movie.
Yeah, that was just the first. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's just Leah Thompson, hot. Yes. But she was always good in everything.
Mm-hmm.
She has a real, down to earth kind of American Girl vibe, even when she's playing characters like this. Everybody that did the Howard stuff, again, fuck the Razzies. I thought it was all very, very well done. And Tim Robbins, as you mentioned earlier, is really good in this. He's kind of just like this kind of, goofy guy that hangs out with wacky, goofy guy. But you know what? He's fun. There's the moment where he's in the cop car and Howard's trying to get him out and he's like, let me get you out of the window. And he's just like, oh, the window. And he goes out the front window, right? He's handcuffed. Like there's little funny moments like that I like quite a bit.
He's totally committed.
Yeah.
He just met this fucking space alien from Duck World and he's totally committed to helping him.
Do you know that here's another, I guess to piggyback on my effects, is that, do you know that Howard the Duck, whoever that was in there, Ed Gale, at the time, and Tim Robbins actually flew that little airplane thing in some of those scenes?
Yeah, I read that.
I read that it said it required, I don't remember what they called that thing. There was a name for that little airplane.
It's a light flyer or something.
Like a light flyer or something. And it said several scenes required for them to actually fly it. That could end wrong. So kudos to those guys for doing that, because it looked very real in the movie, and then you find out, oh, it's because it was real for the most part.
Yep,
That's
sure.
Nuts. That's nuts. All right, any other likes, Manster?
I like the ending when they're playing guitar. The band's up there and Howard's the new manager and he's playing guitar.
Yeah,
fucking just like Marty.
Just like Marty McFly.
Oh, it's so good. I fucking love that. That was a great scene.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard that song in forever. But as soon as I heard them playing it, I remembered there's that whack, 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 whack lick in it. I'm like, oh yeah, Howard the Duck. All right. Well, we can't be all nice about it. We got to go some dislikes. I'll start with dislikes.
All right.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. The tone of this movie is it's devilish. It's not good. It never seems to find the ground it wants to be. Does it want to be, as we said before, this alien like lands on Earth kind of comedy, duck out of water thing? Does it want to have like dark aspects where we're in bathhouses and we're doing like these kind of things? It doesn't all work together. And again, Big Trouble in Little China, although not so much the adult stuff, kind of melded these ideas in the same year, by the way, and worked them, put them together and worked them. And this one, it also feels very stop go. It doesn't ever feel like it's trying to do two of the things at the same time. It feels like when it's trying to be like a fish out of water comedy, that's all it's focusing on. And then all of a sudden it's about the Dark Lord of the fucking
It's not smooth transitions. It's just like you said, it's like a stop go.
Yeah.
Here's a scene of this. Here's a scene of this. Here's a scene of this. Yep. It definitely suffers from an uneven tone,
All right.
Drama, romance.
What do you got besides that?
All right. So as much as we like the look as much as we like Howard, and it was a pretty good looking costume, I felt like it should have been grittier. Like he was a tough duck.
Right.
Tough duck. But it looked too slick, little too glossy. The face, although the bill did move and the eyes did move, I don't think it had enough expression in it.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
It was just pretty much his eyes rolling up or down, and the bill moving, and there wasn't a whole lot more than that. And then one other thing, as far as Howard goes, is I didn't love the voice actor, and as I'm watching the movie, all I could think was, I wish this was Steve Buscemi.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't really around at that point, and I get that. But do you agree that maybe it would have been a different movie? Robin Williams would have been too much.
No Robin Williams.
Yeah. It would have been too much, like, him, oh my God, it would never have worked because Howard isn't that kind of character. He's kind of like this, what do you want to say? Sarcastic-y type duck, Yep. And if it was Robin Williams, it would have been Genie from Aladdin, just a little bit maybe darker, and that would have been too much. So yeah, I can agree with you. I think maybe the technology wasn't there yet, but yeah, the face certainly doesn't do the things that you can imagine it doing.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if I had to come up with another dislike of this movie, the tone is such a big one for me. But I would probably also say it's too long.
You took my last one.
It's too long. I mean, how long is this movie?
It's nearly 2 hours.
Yeah, this movie should be
hour and a half. They could have been in and out.
Hour and a half. I could have gone in there and cut so many things. I could have made the whole him getting a job sequence into a quick 2-minute montage featuring like I'm walking on sunshine or something. You know what I mean? And you get to see he works at a fast food restaurant for like a day, and he does this for a day, and he does that for a day. Like, and that could have just shortened that whole bit down. Once we get to the main part of the plot where we find out about Jeffrey Jones' character and the Dark Overlord coming, it takes forever to get to the end from that point.
So fucking long. It seemed like that was the longest part of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because it felt kind of brisk going through I don't want to say brisk, but it felt like it was moving.
Yeah, it was moving along.
And then once you kind of hit that point, it just seems like, oh man, okay, we go back to the giant telescope machine or whatever, and now this happens, that happens, and then before you know it, like we're having this huge crab vagina fight with Howard on a little like cart with a fucking mounted cannon. I'm like, what is happening here? What the fuck is going on in this movie at this point? And yeah, like I said, when I saw it was like almost 2 hours long, I thought, even before watching it, I thought that's too long. This is too long for this movie. All right. So that's really my other dislike. Do you have anything else that's glaring?
No, you took my last one. I had about 7 or 8 O's when I wrote too long.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is, and they picked a direction and went for it. The anthropomorphic duck. Have you seen some of the newer art of it, of the movie that would have been Howard the Duck? It's like this really, I don't know, like an old PI sort of looking duck. And I don't know, I think if it was animated and they somehow did something like Cool World or something like that. Maybe
Right,
that
so-
would have been a little different, a little better. They could have given it a different look.
Okay, so your a dislike for you would almost be like the format of the movie. Like this should have not been a live action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of can agree with that. And again, Howard the Duck, the character, they went right up and said, we're changing this character.
Yeah, they took away his personality from the comics.
Taking the personality away because, I don't know if because was because it wouldn't work with kids, but again, this movie has duck tits. It shouldn't have worked with kids. This movie has a scene where two people are basically fucking in a sauna. This should never have worked with kids. So, all right. So that's our likes and dislikes. There's only one thing left to do, and we're going to do it right the fuck now. It's Triple T time.
Triple T.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll. Bring the noise.
You going to go first or me?
I'm going to go first.
All right.
I'm going to go first. We've talked about this movie. There's not a lot for me to add on top of it. But when it comes right down to it, Howard the Duck is known as a trash movie. People seem to dislike this movie very heavily. And this is kind of the neutral section where it happens a lot here on the Triple T's. I watched this and I was not offended. But at the same time, I watched this and said, I'm not watching this again anytime soon. So I'm going straight tolerable. It's fine. If it's on in the background, I don't have a problem with it. Leah Thompson, got no problem with that. Some of the jokes, funny. I laughed at things. Oh, Tim Robbins, cool. But it just doesn't add up to something that I could say, oh, this is like going to go on my yearly rotation of things I have to watch. But I also did not watch this and go, oh, I'm so mad about Howard the Duck. I don't get that part. So for me, it's the middle T. It's tolerable. What about you, Master?
Yeah. And me with that kind of stuff. I have no tolerance for most of that. And so, like you said, I've never seen this before. And I kind of wish I had so I could revisit it, but I didn't. So I can revisit it in the future. It has its moments, where you actually fall under its spell, right? And you're like, yeah, this is good. I'm having a lot of fun watching this. But it suffers from the uneven tone, like we said over and over. It gets goofy, and it gets violent, and it gets romantic, and it gets silly, and it gets sci-fi. It's all over the place. But even with all that, and some pretty good stuff from the cast, and all the puns, so many fucking duck puns.
Yeah.
But even after all of that, all the shortcomings, there's just something charming about Howard the Duck.
Yeah. I agree.
To me, I don't even think have I given a treasure to anything yet?
Oh, you've had to have, I'm assuming.
I don't remember. Anyway, this is it's just on the line of tolerable and treasure to me, which might be a little weird. There's no line. So if there's no line, fuck it. I'm gonna just say treasure then.
So you enjoyed this.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man.
All right. So that's good. That's excellent.
Yeah.
If you never gave something a treasure before, now you have.
Yep.
Yeah, we've done a lot of these. I have to think you gave something treasure, but we know it wasn't Batman Forever because that movie is a fucking piece of trash. Real quick before we move on to some of the insiders and their answers to this question, like you just said before, you said something very, very correct. You said this movie makes you fall under its spell. At one point when I fell under this movie's spell for a good 10 minutes was the diner scene with the weird diner crew, the weird waitress, the fact that it was a Cajun sushi place, and then like that, where they order the specials and he freaks out about the eggs, and then Jeffrey Jones' character goes, "She took my eggs." I enjoyed all of that. So I very much agree. I think this, for me, being tolerable, I think there's more parts, it's less of a whole and more parts, but I see where you're coming from. This is not a trash movie. This is not a trash movie, but let's hear from a couple of the Pint insiders. Those are the folks that go to Patreon/The Pint, pay $2.50 a month and get all kinds of extra episodes, all kinds of cool things, and get to add their 2 cents into the shows here. Let's start off with Julio from The Contrarians, a fantastic podcast. We love Julio. Oh man, absolute treasure. I spent so many years hearing people talk about this movie being horrendous. And when I finally watched it, it was like those dramatic moments in a story where they go, everything I ever knew is a lie. Chris Ramirez, another one of our good friends from the Pint Insider. While this is not the worst movie ever made, it's still pretty bad. The special effects are good. The plot and dialogue are painful. Overall, it is trash, and I have no desire to watch it ever again.
Wow. There's not much of a plot.
No, there's not much of a plot. Now, you did mention before, Brian had mentioned on the Facebook page, Absolute Treasure. Brian loves this movie. Obviously, he gives it out randomly to people. And then our last insider that answered this one is our good friend Patrick Flanagan. I tried for years to find the right mood for, in quotation marks, enjoying this, but it's bad on pretty much every level, which doesn't mean it's not a fun watch. Disasters often can be, but it fails as an adaptation. It fails as a satirical look at society. It fails as a big budget sci-fi fantasy, and it fails as a comedy. It's just watching piles of money burn on screen.
Wow, that's a little harsh, Patrick.
That's but Patrick says it like he fucking feels it. He says it like he feels it. And you know what? Just because he said it like he feels it, and just because on every episode of The Pint, we have been going through and saying that the Pint, a pop culture podcast, is a co-production between myself and Lloyd, aka The Pint, and our Pint Insiders. Well, today we're going to say, today it's your day, Patrick.
It's your day, Patrick. Woo!
You just told us that the movie we talked about is trash. You're a great guy. Patrick lives up in New Jersey. We've had the pleasure of meeting him several times down at Connecticut Cult Classics. Patrick's a huge movie fan. And as a matter of fact, I've been trying to figure out how to share it on the Pint website. But Patrick's been doing something very cool on his own Facebook page this year. Every month, he's watching different movies of a different kind of genre or ilk, as you might say, and then posting little reviews on it, and then also posting his reviews to Letterboxd.
Nice.
So I'm going to share it to our Facebook. You're going to see Patrick. You're going to follow him on Letterboxd and read his stuff, because Patrick is much more eloquent with the words than I am. And again, he's pretty good. All right, Manster, tell everybody where they can find us so we can get the fuck out of here.
Any of your podcatchers, whatever one you like, just Google it. Google us, search for us. You'll find it, and we're there. On Facebook and YouTube, it's The Pint, a pop culture podcast. Instagram and Twitter, it's at The Pint Podcast. And for the Patreon Insider, it's www.patreon.com/The Pint.
That's right, $2.50 a month. Again, join up. All kinds of fun. Master, say those words.
See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!